Hey everyone, Richard Metal Fan here. Decided to bring you guys an old school album review in honor of the recent passing and as a tribute to Brent Hinds. And as you can see by the title, I'm going to be reviewing Remission by Mastodon, the band's debut album released on May 28th, 2002 under Relapse Records. Now, this is the album that started it all for Mastodon. Now, for those of you who probably aren't familiar with Mastodon, heavy metal band from Atlanta, Georgia. These guys been around since January 13th of 2000, so 25 years. So I would give kind of like a little brief history about their started. It started after like Bron Daylor and Bill Kelleher moved out of their state from New York to Atlanta, Georgia, and then apparently they met Troy Sanders and the late Brent Hinds at a High on Fire show. And of course, both of them were like in all different bands, but then they decided to like join forces and thus formed Mastodon in the year 2000. And then I've heard it was like back in that same year in June of 2000. So then they recorded a 9-song demo with Eric Sander on vocals, and then afterwards he left the band for I have no idea, for personal reasons. And then some of the songs were re-recorded with, of course, Troy and Brent singing in it. And then, of course, that in 2001, they got signed to Relapse Records, and it was around that time. Most of these songs are actually some re-recordings from their Live Split EP. But then let's just dive right into this album. Now, compared to like their later works, like Mastodon, they basically combine sort of like their elements of like sludge metal bands like Melvins and Neurosis with sort of like classic metal like Iron Maiden and Thin Lizzy. And one thing to know about the vocals from Troy Sanders and Brent Hinds, they're more kind of like hardcore, kind of yelling a bit. It's not much clean vocals as like the band would later have on like later albums. And the guitar work from, of course, like the late Brent Hinds, he comes with some really great soloing and riffs. Same thing with Bill. Both of them come with great riffs. The bass I kind of wish was audible from Troy Sanders. I kind of wish you could hear his bass a little bit more. And the drumming from Bron Daylor, in my opinion, one of the best drummers still kicking ass today. So without further ado, let's dive into this album track by track. Now, starting things off is Crusher Destroyer, which starts off with a T-Rex kind of roar. From what I heard, it was actually a sample from Jurassic Park. And I feel like this album starts off really great. It has some really great riffs. Has some really great riffs and goes right into like full speed. And the first thing you hear is just anything, and just the crunchy kind of guitar riffs, and then the tempo and the insane drumming from Bron is just great. It's just organized chaos. Like, I don't think there's really a structure here, and the verses have a really great lick, and I don't know, it's just a really just chaotic way to start off this album. Then we go into March of the Fire Ants. Now, this song is surprising. It's a little bit slower than Crusher Destroyer, and this one sort of helps sort of like the rabid beats of the previous song, while remaining that we're sort of like keeping like the flow of the album, I should say. And this, in my opinion, is probably the sludgiest track on the album. And the power chords are few and far between. But the opening is very memorable, but also kind of sneaky as well. Easily one of the best openings on this album. And then the tempo changes and they're really sneaky, and then the drumming and the transition to the verses and the cool moment of the song, and the verses are really catchy too, and has some very muted power chords. And then the next section is, in my opinion, less organized and offers sort of like the weaker parts of the album. It just has the sludge groove with nothing to offer in there. But then we get to the bridge, which it has a very melodic bridge, which kind of surprised me when I first heard it. It kind of reminds me of like some of that old like Swedish melodeath, like In Flames, but a little bit slower. And then I just think it's a great song. Next up is Where Strides the Behemoth. Now, this song I feel like is a lot better than March of the Fire Ants. It has like no kind of like weird guitar parts. It opens up with a simple kind of lead, and then I don't know. It's just then the riff, especially the first riff of the song, just gets going. It's a really good one. It basically is a repeat of the higher riff, but with sort of like muted chords and sort of bass added. The drums also has a bit of a blast-esque beat, and it changes halfway through to an open repeat of the previous riff, but it sounds a lot great. And the verses here are great. Has some really great time signatures, muted chords, and open notes that really kind of keep like the flow and the speed of the song. And then the next part, especially after the first verse, is really crazy. And the screaming here takes some sort of pitch, and I don't know. It's just the verses here repeat, and the pitching screams come back in. And then the song, I feel like it seems to repeat with, and then you just think it's going to repeat again, but then there's like with a bit of an absence of guitars, and you hear just drums and distorted bass. And then there's another section that just really knocked me on my ass, and there's the riffs in here and the missing extra beats and the screaming really makes the bridge really good for the song. Next up, Warhorse. Now this is one of the more interesting songs. Like the first few songs, like the guitars were tuned to A. Now this is actually in D standard, and I don't know, like the opening of this song is really great, but it also feels a bit confusing. It shows sort of like the technical ability of the band like no other opening of the album. The power chords are really well played, and especially with the harmonizing guitar player is playing the lead, it sounds quite good, and it fits the tone for the rest of the album. And the best part about the opening, I feel like it doesn't last too long. It's good while it lasts, but I feel like, I don't know, I don't even know what I'm fucking saying. But when the verse starts, the screaming is the harshest I've ever heard, because like the raw screams that take place of the growls under like some strange vocal distortion, and the riff that comes after every verse though is the magical, like the icing of the cake on here. Old Nessie. Now, the intro kind of sounds a little bit kind of fucking like Guns N' Roses. It has a crunchy opening, moody and bluesy kind of vibe. It's very beautiful and pretty technical. The only problem I feel like I have with it, I feel like it just goes on for too long. Now, if it was like a little bit shorter, it wouldn't be as bad. But then after the intro, you have a really great, beautiful riff. It's kind of different, and it sounds nostalgic, but then it sounds fearful. Like it almost has a bit of uncertainty to it, and it has some true emotion behind it. And then it just breaks down to a minor scale, and then the clean riff sets. It's just a very emotional song, like musically. Burning Man. Now, this song has a change of pace, and this is almost kind of very thrashy, and it's also very slow. And the intro sounds like shit a little bit, at least with the part with the chords come in, and then when it raises up, it gets more interesting, and then the fifth chords come in, which makes better sense of it. And then when the main riff starts, it's very catchy yet metalish, and then the singing starts. You have no idea what they're singing about, but it feels right. Trainwreck. Now, this song, I feel like I've heard it before. I don't know. I just don't really think it's anything like the rest of the album. It opens with some kind of songs that sound very annoying, and then there's some clean guitars that kind of sound similar to Crusher Destroyer, which this song is definitely one of my least favorite. It just doesn't have much of a structure on here. And then Trampled Under Hoof, which I think this song, I don't really like it, to be honest. I just think it's just confusing thing out there. It's just too kind of experimental, if it's something I would say. Trilobite. Now, this is another good song. I feel like it sort of like redeems itself. It has some really dark rhythms that come in, and it's a very progressive piece, kind of similar to Old Nessie. It opens up with a clean groove, and the guitars are gloomy, unlike anything we've heard on here. And the part of the song is just really brings forth suspense, and then the guitars banging away, and you know you're in for some of the heavy pieces on the album. And then the mutes are very crunchy, and the chords fit in really good. Mother Puncher. Now, this is personally one of my all-time favorite Mastodon songs. I love this song. It is one of the most technical songs I've heard. It's another song that's kind of like tuned in the key of A. It's a perfect sludge metal track. The intro is cooler than almost any intro that I've heard outside of this album. It's just really hard to play guitar too. And then it kind of goes into like a kind of a funky kind of southern rock riff, and then the muted notes come in, and the guitars really fit really well on here. And then we close things out with Elephant Man. Now, this is an instrumental. Now, it's nothing really special, but it's not too bad of a song, but it's just nothing to like, oh, wow. But I just think there's a really good solo in there, but I just think, a solid album. Or a solid way to end it. So overall, Remission by Mastodon, a pretty good way to kick off their career. So if I were to give this album a score, I'm going to give Remission by Mastodon a solid 8.5 out of 10. So that's my review of the album, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about it, and I'll see you all in the next video. And as always, keep it metal.